Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain the 100-Foot Journey. This movie tells the story of an Indian family who moved to France and set up a new restaurant very close to a French cuisine restaurant. Fierce competition broke out between the two restaurant owners. But unexpectedly, this film has a deep meaning of family. What kind of heartwarming story that will be told? Let's find out in the 100-Foot Journey. The 100-Foot Journey begins with the story of the Kadam family who run a restaurant in Mumbai, India. Mr. and Mrs. Kadam have 3 sons, Mansoor, Hassan, and Mukhtar, and 2 daughters, Mahira and Aisha. Of the 5 children, Hassan has been trained to replace his mother as the main chef. However, one night, a mob attacked and burned their restaurant down until nothing was left. The Kadam family was able to escape, but unfortunately, the mother died in the fire. Due to this tragedy, the Kadam family were granted political asylum to live in London, where they later reopened their restaurant. It is very difficult for them to run the restaurant, especially when the cold temperatures in London make the ingredients less suitable for their Indian cuisine. Therefore, Papa Kadam plans to move to France. Although the plan was protested by several of his children, because they thought Europe was not a suitable place for them to live. In the end, Papa took his family to France using an old car. On the way, their car brakes suddenly broke, and in the midst of the chaos, a tractor passed in front of them. To avoid an accident, Papa Kadam swerved to the left of the uphill road. But then, their car broke down in the middle of a field. Fortunately, a beautiful woman named Marguerite came in a car. Marguerite offers to help them push their car to her house, where they can rest and have dinner. Even Marguerite herself prepared dinner, and after eating, they decided to spend the night at a hotel not far from Marguerite's house while waiting for their car to be repaired. In the morning, Papa Kadam and Hassan took a walk around the hotel where they were staying. On the side of the road, Papa Kadam saw an old building that used to be a restaurant being marketed for sale. He was interested in buying the restaurant, even though Hassan warned him to first discuss with Mansoor, the eldest son. But the stubborn Papa Kadam did not heed Hassan's warning, because after all, he was going to buy the restaurant with his money, not Mansoor's. Then, they entered the restaurant building and walked around inside. Suddenly, an old woman appeared, asking them to leave the building as they had trespassed. Papa Kadam expressed his intention to buy the building, but the old woman said that she did not own it. Upon returning to the hotel, Hassan told his siblings about Papa Kadam's plans. Disagreeing with the plan, they then warned Papa Kadam about a restaurant located directly opposite the old building. It is a local favorite restaurant. Even the president of France has eaten there. However, Papa Kadam insisted on buying the building. He says, although the restaurant opposite serves well-known and delicious food, people here have never tried Indian cuisine with the Kadam family recipe. Papa Kadam then contacted a property sales agent to buy the building. It wasn't long before they settled in the city and moved into the building where they would open a restaurant called Maison Mumbai. Meanwhile, the restaurant opposite is called Le Sol Pleureur, a luxurious 5-star restaurant with international standard operating. The owner is an old woman named Madame Mallory. She has a favorite staff who is none other than Marguerite. One afternoon, Marguerite was shopping at a market. There, she accidentally meets Hassan, and they then engage in conversation. From Marguerite, Hassan got a little information about the ins and outs of a restaurant business in France, including Le Sol Pleureur. It turns out that Madame Mallory is currently eyeing a Michelin 2 award for her restaurant. Interestingly, even though they are now rivals, Marguerite provides a French cookbook recipe for Hassan to study. The Kadam family then started busy renovating their restaurant. They even spread brochures in crowded places to introduce their restaurant, which will soon open. However, in the midst of their preparations, Madame Mallory came to visit. She was disturbed by Indian music playing very loudly. Then, she went around looking at the preparations the Kadam family were working on, but she found that their preparations were not up to the standards of a French restaurant. Not only that, she also felt their cooking was as bad as the music they played. Hassan innocently did as Mallory asked, a mistake that the Kadam family would later pay dearly for. The next day, when Papa Kadam and Hassan were going to buy cooking ingredients, it turned out that the ingredients such as salmon, shrimp, and mushrooms had been bought out by Madame Mallory. As a result, they have to go to more distant markets, so they waste a lot of time. It's time for the restaurant to open. The Kadam family had prepared in their best attire to welcome the guests. But not a single visitor came, even when the day turned to night. Meanwhile, across from them, customers flocked to Le Sol Pleureur. A few days later, Papa Kadam changed into traditional Indian clothes. Finally, some people came to try their Indian food. But that was only the beginning, as it wasn't long before Maison Mumbai was packed with customers, eager to taste Indian cuisine, which is rich in spices and flavors. One day, Hassan accidentally met Marguerite while fishing. Hassan took the opportunity to ask Marguerite about French cuisine. Marguerite explains that to master French cooking, one must master 5 recipes for sauce ingredients, which are tomato sauce, velouté, hollandaise, espagnole, and béchamel. That night, Hassan immediately learned to make the 5 sauces from a recipe book. The next morning, Hassan takes Marguerite for a picnic in a park. There, Hassan asked Marguerite to taste the 5 sauces he had made, as well as the smoked meat he had brought with him. When Marguerite tried it, she was impressed by Hassan's cooking. According to her, Hassan has the potential to become a chef. Since childhood, Hassan did have a stronger sense of taste than his other siblings. And besides cooking, his mother also taught Hassan to taste various dishes and explore the philosophy of cooking. One day, when Hassan was fishing, he caught a fish that was quite large. He then cooked the fish to serve to the mayor who came to Maison Mumbai. But the mayor's arrival is not without reason. Madame Mallory had complained about Maison Mumbai for playing music too loudly, and the mayor had come to rebuke them. If that continues, the government will close the restaurant. Papa Kadam could do nothing but promise to fulfill the mayor's request. A few days later, Madame Mallory was shopping for pigeons at the market. She was used to serving it as a minister's dish. However, Madame Mallory found something unusual that day. Papa Kadam had bought up all the doves in the market. Apparently, Papa Kadam managed to get a recipe for pigeons after bribing the dishwasher at La Salle Pleureur. However, Hassan could not approve of Papa Kadam's actions. He then came to La Salle Pleureur with a pigeon dish, complete with his homemade sauce. Unexpectedly, Madame Mallory threw the food away after she tasted Hassan's sauce, saying that Hassan had wasted his time. Hassan took Madame Mallory's words literally. He felt sad and frustrated, thinking the sauce really wasn't good. In fact, the sauce he made was the best sauce Madame Mallory had ever tasted. The unhealthy rivalry between the two restaurants became even more acute after they clashed with each other and reported the mistakes of each other to local officials. Until one night, when Madame Mallory was going to sleep, she saw some suspicious people, including one of the chefs who worked at her place, gathered on the side of the road in front of the restaurant. Without thinking, she closed the curtains of her room. It turned out that the men vandalized Maison Mumbai and set it on fire. In the incident, Hassan was hit by a spark until his hand was burned. In the afternoon, Madame Mallory gathers all her staff to investigate the incident at Maison Mumbai. She suspects her chef, Jean-Pierre, of being behind the arson, because last night she saw him standing on the side of the road just before the arson broke out. Jean-Pierre admitted the accusation, and Madame Mallory immediately fired him. After the arson incident, Hassan rested at home with his hands covered in bandages. His injured hand made him have to stop cooking for a while. Even Hassan thought that, if they couldn't defeat them, maybe they should join them. In the afternoon, to make amends for the mistakes made by her staff, Madame Mallory took the initiative to clean the outside fence of Maison Mumbai restaurant from graffiti. Instead, Hassan went to Madame Mallory to cook her an omelette. But since his hand was still injured, he asked Madame Mallory to help him stir the eggs on the instructions he gave. They both went inside Maison Mumbai kitchen and started cooking omelette. Hassan gets information from Marguerite that Madame Mallory gave an omelette cooking test when she wanted to hire someone. Therefore, Hassan wanted Madame Mallory to taste his omelette. While helping Hassan cook, Madame Mallory was quite surprised because Hassan's cooking method was different from her. And when Madame Mallory tasted the omelette, she couldn't believe what she was feeling. Hassan's omelette was delicious, with a combination of sharp, hot, and cold flavors that melted in her mouth at the same time. Furthermore, Madame Mallory corrected that Hassan's pigeon dish actually tasted very good. Finally, Hassan begged to work at Madame Mallory's restaurant. Hassan then asked Papa Kadam for permission. As expected, Papa Kadam vehemently refused Hassan's request, even when Hassan revealed that he only wanted to work for 6 months to develop his cooking skills. Papa Kadam took his anger out on Madame Mallory by shouting in front of La Salle Pleureur. Madame Mallory defended herself by saying that it was Hassan's own wish. One evening, Madame Mallory sat waiting for Hassan in front of Maison Mumbai, but after a long wait, Hassan never showed up. At that time, Hassan was visiting Marguerite and spending the night at her place. Hassan told Marguerite that he would be working at Madame Mallory's restaurant, and that meant he could see Marguerite every day. However, Marguerite was not happy to hear that, because she thought that after Jean-Pierre left, she would have a chance to become head chef. Hassan assures Marguerite that he is not after the head chef position. His only intention is to develop his cooking skills. In the morning, Papa Kadam came to Madame Mallory, who was asleep in front of Maison Mumbai. He spoke to her, and Madame Mallory admitted that she needed Hassan so that her restaurant could earn a Michelin 2-star. Ever since she got her first Michelin star 30 years ago, every year Madame Mallory has been waiting to hear whether she will get the next Michelin star. Not long after, Hassan returned home. After discussion, Papa Kadam, Madame Mallory, and Hassan finally reached an agreement. Hassan was allowed to work at La Salle Pleureur. However, his career at La Salle Pleureur restaurant even made his relationship with Marguerite strained, especially when Hassan was trusted by Madame Mallory to serve pigeon dishes at the restaurant. On the other hand, Madame Mallory and Papa Kadam's relationship has only gotten better. Papa Kadam was even invited to La Salle Pleureur to taste Hassan's cooking. In the kitchen, Hassan also creates innovations by changing recipes that have been used hundreds of times. His innovation has the blessing of Madame Mallory, as long as the food tastes better. One night, Madame Mallory was waiting to hear from a food critic. If a restaurant is going to get 2 Michelin stars, the food critic will call at 7 p.m. to let them know. Accompanied by Papa Kadam, Madame Mallory brings out a 30-year-old champagne that has not been opened since she received her first Michelin star. She will only open the champagne if she can get the second star. However, after waiting for some time, the phone still hasn't rang. Seeing Madame Mallory so nervous, Papa Kadam decided to open the champagne, saying that he didn't care about the Michelin star because Madame Mallory was the real star. Just as Papa Kadam was opening a bottle of champagne, suddenly the phone rang. The caller reported that La Salle Pleureur was awarded its second Michelin star. How happy Madame Mallory was when she heard the announcement. The next day, Marguerite told Hassan that the 2 Michelin stars were not only addressed to the restaurant that received it, but also the chef who cooked when the Michelin team and critics arrived. That means Hassan has the opportunity to travel the world, as other restaurants around the world will be eyeing Hassan to achieve their 3rd Michelin star. Long story short, Hassan has moved to work in a famous restaurant in the middle of Paris. He is known as a chef who brings stars and always innovates in his cooking menus. The Kadam family, Madame Mallory, and also Marguerite continue to follow Hassan's career development through magazines. Because ever since he joined a famous restaurant in Paris, many magazines and TV stations have covered the news about him. However, the success of his career and the luxurious life that Hassan is currently living does not make him happy. He still misses his home and family, and Marguerite too. Until one night, he saw his staff were eating food he brought from home. Incidentally, the staff is Indian, and when Hassan tasted the Indian cuisine, he immediately burst into tears. This dish made Hassan miss his family even more. Finally, after a year of pioneering his career in Paris, he decided to return to the city where his family lived. At the end of the film, Hassan has returned to Saint-Antonin, and the first person he meets is Marguerite. He asked Marguerite to be his partner in achieving the 3rd Michelin star. Marguerite agreed to this because Hassan intended to return to work at La Salle Pleureur. The announcement of Hassan's return was celebrated with great fanfare. Madame Mallory also announced that she had handed over complete control of her restaurant to Hassan and Marguerite. Hassan is happy because he can reunite with his family and lover. The film ends.